Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red from Nottinghamshire Live. My name is Matt Davies and I'm hosting as ever today Talk All Things Forest, joined first of all today by Reds legend Garry Birtles. Hello Gary, you well?
Good afternoon, yeah, very good, thank you.
Good. And joining us also is Forest fan Michael Temple. Temps, hello, thanks for joining us, you well?
Morning Matt, all good here, thank you.
Good. So a 1-1 draw against Reading at the weekend. Another point on the road, and I guess any point's a decent point away from home. Forest did lead 1-0, and there's a chance we'll talk about for Lewis Grabban to make it 2-0 before Forest were pegged back. Temps, you watched it in full. What do you make of it? A fair result or not?
Yeah, good point on the road. I think Forest probably had the better of it early on. Didn't make that advantage tell, as you hinted at there. Had a chance to put the game out of sight and force Reading into making some changes which could have weakened their system. But yeah, all things considered, if you draw your away games or win your home games, you're in good nick. So I think we have to consider it a point gain.
I suppose Gary Zinkernagel got on the score sheet, a very good goal, 5 minutes in, drawing outside the box. It's good to see him back, isn't it? Because he's not really quite been at it the last few weeks, has he?
Well, it's always difficult when a new manager comes in. You've got to adjust to the way he wants to do things. And he's got a different way of playing on a Saturday, different way of training methods, I would think. So it's not always easy just to pick it up like that. Good to see him on the score sheet. And, we know he can create. We know he's a very talented player. We want him at his maximum. And hopefully we're going to see that in the coming weeks. Talking about the game, I think what strikes you more about it is that we're a little bit disappointed with a point, which I think is a fantastic thing. When you're disappointed with a point away from home at Reading, 4 to 6, 7 weeks ago, would have been absolutely delighted with a point. We're happy with a point, but since Steve's come in, we're maybe a little bit disappointed. And I think the other thing, Reading having the points deduction, they were always going to be up for it. They're not very happy about it. The players would be fired up. The manager would have got them fired up. And it was always going to be a difficult game because of that. So when you look at it in that perspective, yeah, a very good point.
He's Cooper, he chops and changes formation at the moment, which I don't mind at all. It seems to be horses for courses. I mean, do you have a preference, Temps, on 3-4-3, 4-2-3-1? Does it actually matter? It's all about intent. How do you see this kind of approach that he's taking to games?
I think before the Reading match, I would have had a preference for the three at the back, because I felt that was how to get the best out of Jed Spence and Max Lowe, who've been really important for Forest this season. Having seen them start at fullback, I think they can be in the game just as much, if not more, given how Forest have learned to cover for their kind of marauding runs, particularly in the space of in the context of Jed Spence, who does that so willingly and so effectively throughout the game. The challenge was when Max Lowe went off and he was replaced by Bong, that threat instantly fell away. There was a really frustrating instance where Brennan Johnson, who was starved of the ball in the game, found himself in space on the left-hand side, and Bong's passed it out of play 10 yards behind him. So we just feel a little bit threadbare there. And I think that formation was designed to get the best out of those two fullback slash wing backs. We just have to find a way to make the most of their abilities while we can. Big topic, obviously, with Middlesbrough's interest in getting Jed Spence back into their side and Max Lowe's injury.
Yes, we'll come on to all that in a bit. I wanted to first talk about, we might as well go through the game, talk about this grab and miss. Gary, you've seen it. Now, you're the perfect person to ask. Are you passing that ball for a tap into Jack Colback as a striker, or are you backing yourself to beat the man on the line when Lewis Grabban does really well out wide? 5 minutes into the second half is cleared off the line. The game did rather hang on that in a sense. What would you have done?
I'd have squared it without a doubt, because as a striker, before I saw it, I thought, well, strikers always have that opportunity. They always want to score the goal, but sometimes you have to lift your head up and see what's in front of you. And you can do that very quickly, a quick glance up. Two bright yellow shirts. It's not as if they were grey shirts or anything like that. And the angle he was at was very acute. And a goalkeeper, any goalkeeper worth his salt, will cover that near post and most times save it. So you saw the frustration with the two players who would just have had a tap in, and rightly so. That was a wrong thing to do at the wrong time. And you have to be unselfish sometimes. Strikers, yes, be selfish, but there are times when you have to say, right, okay, he's in a better position than me. And you have to get your head up, and you do it quickly. It's instinctive. And, that could have been the difference between the 3 points and the 1 point.
Yeah, I mean, do you think I'm being a bit unfair by saying the game hung on that? Because Forest obviously conceded a goal, which I'll ask Temps about in a minute. But, football matches are 90 minutes long. Is it a bit unfair for me to single out Graben, putting your striker's hat back on again, Gary?
No, I don't think you're singling him out. You're just looking at an incident that could have, put the game to bed, maybe. And you're asking about an individual. If it was anybody else, if it had been, Lyle Taylor, if it had been Brennan Johnson, you'd have still been having the same conversation. So you're not singling anybody out. You're just singling a situation out that you've got to ask the question, should he have passed it, or did he do the right thing because he's a striker? On that occasion, he should have passed it. Simple as that.
Are you tearing your hair out as a fan at that one, Temps? Because sometimes you want the guy who's meant to get you 20 goals to back himself, don't you? It's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, isn't it?
I think Graben looked fit. He looked sharp, held the ball up well, ran into corners, really, really hungry for work. But unfortunately, two key instances involving him, he came out on the wrong side of. Gary's right. Of course, he should have passed that ball. As Jack Colback was stood on the back stick with a tap in from less than a yard out. There was no need to take on the shot with the defender on the front post. And then second half, James Garner's thread him through. He's rounded the keeper. And the angle was relatively acute, but you'd back him to stick it in left peg. So I think, but for those two instances, that was a 9 out of 10 performance from Graben, led the line, is an automatic selection. And if he'd have made a different decision or executed better in either of those situations, he'd have been the match winner. But yeah, take the percentage option, square all pass there. Jack Colback taps it home. I think it's a very different game.
Yeah, I forgot the one on the left foot. It was like that one against Rotherham, but not as bad when he missed the near open goal, I think.
See, people will say, well, if he'd have gone, scored at the near post, you wouldn't have been moaning about it. But the fact is, he didn't. And because he didn't, you look at the options, and that option is blatantly obvious to everybody watching. And, I'm sure he saw his two teammates there and unfortunately didn't try and pick them out.
How do you think his teammates react to that? I'm really delving into this now, but you're in the dressing room, Gary. Are the teammates putting him up against the wall? He doesn't look like the kind of person who likes that, but do you dig him out, or does that depend on the individual?
You possibly do it in the dressing room. You saw the reaction of the two players. They were absolutely furious, and I would have been exactly the same. And he'd have got a volley, believe me, from when we were playing it, because you expect, a little bit better from your teammates at times. Yeah, he's a great finisher. Yes, we know he's a goal scorer, but you have to be a little bit more than that sometimes. You have to be a team player, and that was one incident where it needed that conviction, being a team player. And as I say, it could have changed the whole outlook of the game, and it might not have done, but it could have done.
True. Right, let's go on to how we cover these injuries then. Max Lowe hobbles off, and he's out for at least one game, possibly two, probably more with Forest. Who knows? These injuries do seem to drag on. Ryan Yates is suspended after getting 5 yellow cards. So they kind of come as a pair. So, Temps, does Gaetan Bong play, or does Jack Colback move to left back and you create two holes in midfield? Do you do something completely different I haven't thought of yet? What are you doing?
Look, we're aspiring to be a top six side at some stage. I don't think you can be a top six side with Gaetan Bong at left back, is my view, having watched him a fair few times for Forest now. I think he appears nervous. I think he's aware that the jury's out on him, or in fact that some people have made their mind up and he shouldn't be anything more than backup in the Forest squad. And I think that's shown in his performance. Clearly, having been successful at Brighton, there's more in there somewhere, and it's up to Cooper to try and coach that out of him if he is going to be the go-to guy for this game and to cover Max Lowe's injury absence. Personally, I would stick Jack Colback there. I think Garner looked like a more assured presence than he had been in previous substitute appearances when he came on. There are a couple of touches of real class. The through ball to Lewis Grabban showed that he can be an effective centre mid and an effective deputy for Colback, if you like, at both ends of the pitch. So that'd be my move. Colback to left back and find a space in the side for James Garner while needs must.
Who's the second central midfielder with Yates suspended?
Yeah, you've thrown one at me there, haven't you? So I mean,
is it a Jada or Cafu?
Yeah, you talk about that's an option. Cafu's gone missing, hasn't he? Despite having been a bit of a mainstay last year, you could have a bit of a make weight, maybe chuck in someone like Joe Lolly with rather than put him in that more familiar role a little bit further up the pitch. But if you're not going to play Bong, there needs to be some accommodating somewhere. Figueiredo could potentially play left back too. I think at a push, McKenna would. I think Fig would be the slightly better option. I suspect that Cooper will be looking for an alternative to Bong.
Yeah, Greg says Spencer at left back, Drager. Oh, hang on. Yeah, well, that's what Greg says. Also, Greg says, that's if I picked the right one. Drager at right back. He's another player we've kind of forgotten about. Gary, what's your take on Bong? Do you sort of feel a bit sorry for him because he goes from August to November without kicking a ball and then you've got to come in and be good? Or do you think you've seen enough of him to just make a ruling and say an experienced player's got to be better than he's been for Forest?
It's always a difficult one, for an individual to have a go at him or not have a go at him. When you've not played for ages, I know how difficult that can be. You're expected to come in and do okay. You are nervous. And like you said, because people, the jury's still out on him, he knows that. He knows that he's not the most popular and he's been making mistakes when he gets in. You talked about the pass that he could have played that went 10 yards short and out of play. Those things sort of happen when you've not been playing. But I would go with Colback at left back. You're at home against Luton, who, are one of the best teams in the division with the budget they've got. They've been unbelievable. It's not going to be easy to beat Luton because they've got a good manager. They've got a good, ex-Forest contingent in them who know all about Forest. But I think at home it's a different kettle of fish. I think you can afford to be a little bit more proactive, a bit more flamboyant, and just get on the front foot from the off and just try and put the pressure on very early on, non-stop. And Jack's proved he can do that. And if it doesn't work, then you have got other options. You can change it. But in the first instance, I'd play him at left back and then just see how the game progresses.
This is a comment from Peter about Spence again at the fact, Finn back at right back, and we've kind of forgotten about Finn, who's a very talented young 19-year-old kid who's got a bright future. Do you think, Gary, in a sense, this shows that even though Forest have had this massive turnover of players, in some areas this squad is still a little bit threadbare, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the impressive thing is what Steve has done so far. He's come in, nobody expected mid-table even when we're in the predicament we're in. So he's had a very, very good look at all the players, I'm sure, in the squad. He's had international breaks as well, which has been a massive boost, I would think. So he can have a really close examination of what he's got at his disposal. And he'll have every player monitored and he'll have every player's strengths in his mind, every player's weaknesses, every player in order who he wants to put in there in the respective positions, because he's very good at doing things like that. He's very good with young players. He knows the game inside out. He knows the championship inside out. And, what he's done so far has been so impressive, with his backroom staff. The players have reacted. And when you've got reaction like that from players will play in positions they're not always accustomed to. I did it once when I played left back, but I'd never play there again because it was the hardest position I've ever played, especially when you're marking Danny Wallace, who was a flying machine. My one and only appearance at left back, but when I went to centre half, it was comfortable. I enjoyed it, and you can move things around. You can get players just to be what's the word they always use about the player who can play in all the positions?
Utility man. The
utility man. Yeah, there are players like that, and there are players who don't mind doing that, and you've got to pick those players out and use them to the full extent. And Steve will know, like I say, every player inside out, and he'll have in his own mind already. I'm convinced, he's starting 11.
Let's continue this selection roulette. Lee's thrown a good name in of Tyrese Forner. I've forgotten about him. I really like him. I'd like to see him play, and we kind of know what he can do. Temps, we're shooting in the dark a bit here with a Jada. We're all having a ruling on him. None of us have seen him play a first team game. I mean, are we raising expectations quite a lot of a Paraguayan guy who's never kicked a ball in England before?
Look, at a lesser level, on a Sunday morning in
Here we
Luton
go.
Town, I'm trying to pick a team. We have this principle that sometimes, regardless of position, you've got to get your 11 best players on the pitch. So Steve Cooper's got a really difficult one here, and I think you framed it in a way that I hadn't even noticed, in that moving Colback out of there in the absence of Yatesy could completely disrupt the heartbeat, the central midfield pairing of that team. So what should he do in this situation? I think he should accommodate more experienced players in relatively unknown positions rather than expose 2 or 3 young players at the same time. I'm excited about Forner. I went to that Bradford game, saw 5-6 of those top-end academy under-23s boys play exceptionally well. But it's a very, very different proposition when the club is upwardly mobile, climbing the table on a reasonable run under a new manager who's now had the chance to assess all these players, knows that those guys will come good at some stage. I think he'll end up falling back on the more experienced players in the side who've been in and around the Championship for longer periods of time and accept that they can adapt and show that versatility to play out of position. Now, look, hopefully he will have made taken a view that someone like a Jada is first team ready, but he'd be pinged and be taking a big risk if he put someone in who was shown to be exposed at this level. So only Steve Cooper will know that. I trust in him. I'm not concerned that he'll make the wrong decision, but in terms of making my prediction of what he will do, I think he'll revert to experience over relatively untested youth.
Did you want to come in on that, Gary? You look like you did.
It was versatile, the word I was looking for. Just used. Not utility, that was it. Versatile.
Okay, that's my fault.
Yeah, I think the problem is, the nature of the Championship. We've seen so many times in the past players come in with huge anticipation. Carvalho's name's always going to come up. You go back to David Platt's time with the 3 Italian lads who came in. Clearly very talented players, but the Championship is brutal. And if you don't know the Championship, no matter whether you play at home or away in a game, you could get found out in the first 15, 20 minutes. You could be breathing through, for the first 20 odd minutes, because it's frantic, it's frenetic, it's one of the most difficult leagues to play in. Nobody's an easy option when you're playing against them, no matter whether look at Derby beating Bournemouth yesterday. Nobody saw that coming. That's how difficult the Championship can be. And sometimes you just have to bide your time as a coach or a manager and say, this game might not be the right time. Let's go with, the most experienced with players we've got in the Championship. Be, positive, get on the front foot and take the game to the opposition. Just do that. And because you're at home, different if you're away. The points at Reading will have given people confidence again because everybody thinks maybe we should have beat them. So go into the home game and just be ultra positive. You might lose your defensive midfield players, but maybe you don't need your defensive midfield players. Maybe Garner and Zinkernagel, and that can be an option. Maybe 4-4-2. You don't know. You can change that system very frequently because he's got players who can fit into different systems. So it'd be interesting to see what he does play against.
I think the Figueiredo could work at left back in a 4, but certainly not a left wing back in a 5.
Oh no, yeah. No, true. One more point from Philip here about Drake as an international football. He's obviously done well for Tunisia recently. I don't know, the Championship's different to international football. I'm not quite sold on that, but obviously we have to say the manager sees these players more than us, so we trust his decision. One thing I did want to say, it's a bit mad, isn't it? We've gone from slating, or some people have gone from slating Ryan Yates and Jack Colback, and now we're having a 20-minute tiz debate about how the hell do we cover Jack Colback and Ryan Yates. It's kind of a measure of how far they've come, isn't it, Gary? That we're in this position now.
But that's what we're saying about different managers have different opinions, different ways of playing, different ways of using individuals, and those individuals will conform to that because they're part of a squad. But sometimes a new manager will come in and say, right, I've released your shackles now. Go and show me what you can do with your ability. I've been told you can do this, you can do that, and I'm giving you that opportunity. Just go and ply your trade. Do what you do best. Brian Clough, the many things he said, but one of the best things he ever said to a player, said, I only care what you can do, not what you can't do. So that gives you, when you go out on the pitch, the biggest lift you could ever have as a player. Not bother what you can't do. Just go and do what I know you can do. And it looks like Steve's given that to the players. And they've taken that on board, and they're just loving every minute of going out there and playing. When you're restricted, you become nervous, you become twitchy, you become, sort of negative. But the positivity since Steve's come in has been, very evident. And, you've got to give him huge credit for doing that. And the players have got to take credit for taking it all on board and feeling released and going out and showing the fans exactly what they can do.
I think just looking in the comments, I've only seen one person say Carvalho should play. He's been on the bench a lot, but he's not got on. Temps, do you feel like we're moving away from Carvalho finally now under Cooper and Cafu as well? Are we getting this kind of clutch of players that he's probably made his mind up about?
Yeah, unfortunately so. I think if you look at the balance of the squad, while we're clearly struggling for options at fullback, we're not struggling for options in and around number 10 and the two wide boys. So I think Carvalho has fallen victim to the emergence of Brennan Johnson, the re-emergence to a point of Joe Lolly. Zinkernagel did, what we all thought Carvalho was previously capable of in the way he marauded forward and took that goal on Saturday. So I think the lack of clamour for Carvalho is almost as justified as the way people have come round to seeing the best of Ryan Yates and Jack Colback. Gary will tell you it is a fickle business. People very rarely have a nuanced opinion of a footballer. They either love them or loathe them. But I'm really pleased that Yatesy and Colback have managed to prove themselves to Forest fans, and that the emergence of those players we've mentioned before has lessened the clamour for Carvalho. I'm convinced that Forest expected to sell Carvalho in the previous transfer window, but for those 2 goals against Bradford and the clamour that led to, it could have been a very, very different story for that player. But yeah, the obvious question is, if you're going to pick him at the minute, at the expense of who? And I don't think Forest fans or the manager would want to drop one of those players holding one of the shirts that Carvalho wants to nab. Certainly not at this moment in time.
You made him sound like Del Boy then, the 2 wide boys.
Well, look, Brennan Johnson had a 6 out of 10 performance at the weekend through no fault of his own. They just didn't find him. And I think he has exploited mismatches in all the games we've seen, all the televised games, all the games we've been to at the City Ground. He's been used to exploit the mismatch against the fullback who's perceived as the weakest. So he's moved a little bit from right to left, but he's always been on top. Now, he had a mismatch again at the weekend, and a couple of opportunities he made for himself. He got at his fullback and had a positive influence on the game, but we were just unable to feed him, unable to manufacture possession for him. And he faded.
You know why that is? You know why that is? Because teams now look at oppositions with a fine tooth comb. They go right through everything, and they'll pick people out and say, right, do not let him have possession because he will absolutely destroy you given the opportunity. And they work on things like that in training, and they'll try and stop him with whatever way they can. It's always been the same. He's a threat, and opposition realise that. So sometimes that's going to be the problem, not because he's not playing well or we can't get the ball to him. Give the opposition credit sometimes for that happening, because that's what you have to do against players like him. And to go back to Carvalho thing, it would be very interesting to see if his shackles have been released, if he played, because I think the responsibility on him before and the expectation levels because of his reputation were too much for him, and the championship was too much for him. But we've already mentioned about the shackles being released off other players. Have they been released with him? Because if they had, we know in the little glimpses we've seen of his ability that he can make things happen in that final third. So that would be interesting as well.
True. Luton on Tuesday, we know, Paul Hart really well, Gary. I know him a little bit. We know they're going to be
well to prove it.
But we know they're going to be well prepared and well drilled, aren't they? Luton a few years ago, you kind of think, probably should win that one. You don't view that game that way now, do you? It's a tough one on Tuesday, isn't it?
Not at all. If anybody view that as a game we should win, then think again, because it's not just this season. It was last season as well. They were fantastic. Defensively, sometimes they looked a little bit frail. They went in front. I can remember, was it a game 3-0 up? And whoever was 3-0 down came back to draw 3-3. So, they're very good going forward, but sometimes, you can exploit it at the back. You've got Chrissy Cohen there as well. We know, he knows Forest back to front, as does Paul from previous in the academy, the younger players. And Steve will know that. I mean, he's shown so far so much acumen of how to go about things with the players he's got, about the championship. The players have bought into it massively. And the big thing he'll be saying is, right, don't underestimate Luton. Don't underestimate Luton. I was at Burnley Saturday for the 3-3 against Palace. And managers pick things up. And Crystal Palace were hopeless defending balls in the box, set pieces. And after, I think Burnley had got back in the game, I said in commentary, I'll bet Sean Dyche just told everybody, as soon as you get that ball, get it in their box. Get it in their box. Play on their weaknesses. And you can guarantee they did that. Every time they got in a good area, they put that ball in the box to try and exploit weaknesses. And they did it. They got back in the game and anybody could have won it. But you play on teams' weaknesses. You know the strengths, so you try and stop that. But then on the weaknesses, you say, right, what can we do against those weaknesses? And I'm sure, Steve will have discussed that. They've gone through it with the team. And I'm really looking forward to it tomorrow.
Are you looking to come in, Temps, and say that's one of Forest's weaknesses? Because I think that is one of Forest's weaknesses. I mean, that goal, they can see it on Saturday, looks ugly, doesn't it? That low, it looked like a scuff corner, but I don't think it was. I think it was a plan. But are Forest a bit weak from set pieces, Temps?
Yeah, it was a planned corner, wasn't it? But any ball along the ground in the box in the corner should be cut out. What I wanted to come in on was I do think Forest are the favourites going into tomorrow night's game. Luton have a 1 point above Forest, but their record is mixed: 1-6, drew 6, lost 6. I think we have to be looking to take down mid-table teams at home if we are to achieve our aspiration. And when we spoke a few weeks about, Gary, about becoming a solid aspirant mid-table side and then looking to go again. And that's pretty much where we've got ourselves to now. When you look back at the goals that Forest concede, you do still see people looking around trying to absolve themselves of blame. Unfortunately, at the weekend, it was Joe Worrell's man, wasn't it, who just got in front of him and scuffed one across the floor. It was a defender that scored. I don't think there was any great craft to it. Just got his foot on the end of it. But yeah, I'd be really miffed conceding a goal where a grass cutting corner there's just flashed past the near post, been dummied by a midfielder and scraped in by a centre half. So definitely something to work on there. But I don't think Forest have a systematic problem of defending set pieces. I think they've become far more resilient in the last 7-8 weeks. Have become far more of a front foot football team, and one that we certainly won't be setting up to defend and sneak a point at home. They'll be going into tomorrow night's game looking to win.
Can I just say about the corner? I don't think any corner that goes along the floor is meant. I think it's just poor. And let me finish that as well. When they do happen, they cause more problems than one that come in with quality, because you're not expecting it. And you panic. It's coming in at an angle that you're not used to, a height that you're not used to. You slash at it, it can go anywhere. And they're the worst ones to defend sometimes. And you see a lot of goals coming from not very good corners. When the ones that come in, you expect to come in with quality, you prefer them because you know what to do with them. You know you're going to have an aerial battle. If you win it, great. If somebody does better and out jumps you, you just got to hold your hands up sometimes. But those scuff ones are horrible to defend because they just take you by surprise.
I'll say this as well: Scott Danny scored the goal, could have been sent off for wrestling, grabbing to the floor twice. There are a couple of real let-offs in the referee's mind when he's gone for yellow rather than red, or turn a bit of a blind eye. I think if that had been a Premier League game and VAR had been there, different decisions.
I'll tell you what, Temps, if you'd been at my game on Saturday, don't know if you saw it on, Sky or Match of the Day, whatever. Chris Wood was gone past the defender, past him. The defender's all over him, grabbed him, pulled him down, and VAR didn't give a sending off or anything. It's staggering. Absolutely staggering.
What did Brian Clough say if you ever conceded from a set piece? Was that a definite no-no?
Well, you all had your own men. I always used to come back from the court for corners because I was good in the air. And you always picked a man out. You came back with the centre half, and if your man scored, then it was your responsibility. He would probably not have a go at you, but you knew it was your responsibility if he scored that goal, and you took that on board.
Last topic today, probably West Brom away on Friday. We've all got memories of Raddy's volley rippling the net still today from that win under Billy. West Brom, I've just done a video with a colleague who covers West Brom. They do not sound like a happy camp. Their fans are absolutely raging at the kind of football they play. They've not lost at home yet. Does it feel like a bit of an opportunity, though, Gary, going to the Hawthorns on a Friday night with a restless crowd?
Why not? So, it's a Midland derby again, East v West. When teams are playing like that, they're not having particularly good results and the fans are against them. You do everything you can to make those fans go more against them. Everybody expected West Brom to be flying up there, but you look at the two teams at the top now at the moment. If Bournemouth had beat Derby, they would have been massive distance in front. But those two look like they could be done and dusted, even at this stage before Christmas. West Brom, they know they're a fancied team. They know they're one of the favourites to go back up, and that brings its own pressure sometimes. As individuals, some might not be able to cope with that. As a team and as a squad, you've got to cope for it because that's the nature of the game. It's great to be a favourite. I would always love to be in a team that was favourite to win because that's what you wanted to be part of. But when teams are down, put them further down if you possibly can. That's why I always said when we played, Brian Clough always used to say, beat a team by as many as you can. Just don't take the foot off the pedal. When they're down, just keep them down because then the next game, people will say, right, look at that result from Forest. They beat so-and-so 4-0 or whatever. And that then puts the fear into the next team you play. So, it's a good mentality to have. It's simple, it's basic, and it works.
A quick extra topic that I hadn't thought of. I should have put my talking points this week from Philip Dawson. Dale Taylor, 17 years old, making his Northern Ireland debut without kicking a ball in the first team for Forest, but ripping it up in the under-23s. Gary, you've been a young striker, 17 years old. Forest have got two strikers the wrong side of 30. Might we see Dale Taylor get a chance soon, do you think?
If Steve Cooper thinks he's deserving of a chance, yes, we will, because he gives you that impression that if you're good enough, it doesn't matter what your age is, go throw them in there. Let's see what they can do. Because at that age, you don't play with any fear. You just go out there and just love the opportunity. I mean, I didn't start professionally till I was 20. I came in late. But having been a floor layer and played at non-league, you come in and you just can't wait to get the opportunity. It's when, you think that opportunity is there to give them. I think the problem for Steve at the moment is we can see the table and we can see that it's possible to sneak up and maybe get into the playoffs, and that doesn't always give a coach or a manager that opportunity to bring young players through, because you have to maybe say, right, experience is going to get us, because of the championship, up the table. If it doesn't, then you can try it. Things aren't going right with the experience, then you've got all that fantastic young talent just knocking on every door, trying to get the manager's eye to get a game. So he's got a really good blend of young and old and experienced. And it'd be interesting to see how he mixes it all up.
What do you think about that, Temps? I remember Craig Westcar playing as a 16-year-old and having a good, steady career, but you don't know what you're going to get, do you, from a teenager? I think Dale Taylor, they seem to have real high hopes for, and you probably know more about young players today as they're coming through than you did even 10 years ago. Thoughts on Taylor?
You've got to be really careful. I think we debuted Will Swan too early, and he's kind of faded back into obscurity and down the pecking order a little bit. On the flip side, we debuted Brom Brereton at the right time, and he coped with the expectation early on in his Forest career, then had a bit of a dry spell and has rediscovered his touch at Blackburn.
But that's because they
No.
played him on the right-hand side. That's the only reason he
Yeah.
played him out of position. That just did him.
But I think you've got to allow a young player to play at levels where he can dominate and continue to develop, and then show him a level where he is dominated. And even in a cricketing sense, in my day job, we talk about those two prospects for academy players, and the balance is very, very important. So 2 examples there. Will Swan came in too early, faded away. Ben Brereton, right time arguably. Westcar, as you say, went on to have a good career around the leagues. I would suspect he's still at least 4th, if not 5th choice striker in that Forest squad. So it'd be the wrong time to debut him at the minute in these 2 games this week. I don't think we'll see him in the squad, to be honest. But I hope that if he can continue his track record for the under-23s, we find an opportune moment to give him 10, 15 minutes in the game that Forest are already comfortably ahead in. But to answer your question directly, Matt, I think it's slightly too soon for Dale Taylor.
Cool. Right. You're winning the background of the week, by the way, Temps. For people who are listening, not watching, you've got 2 signed England shirts in the background there. I've got the end of a mop, I noticed, which my wife will be delighted about. I've left the cleaning stuff in the background.
Matt, I've got a nice pile down here for you. I'll send one over. Okay. When you send me that mug you've been promising me for the last 6 weeks, I'll send you a signed England shirt.
Oh, God, don't talk about those mugs.
Hey, where was all this when our charity game was going on at...
I'll do it next. Well, there's another one.
We got no cricket stuff at all.
I did actually. I said something for Tony Woodcock. He hounded me for a few weeks, actually. So I hope that found its way through.
Right.
It might be in Tony Woodcock's
I'll be on
kitchen
your case.
at the
I'll be on your case next year in May when we're doing it at the City Ground. So,
no problem, Gary. Anything you need.
Brilliant.
Right. I think we'll leave it there. I need to go and shave this beard. It looks ridiculous, but I left it on because it hides how fat my face is.
Just dye it white.
Well, if I get rid of it and trim it down, my face looks so fat. It's ridiculous. But I've got to do something. I've got to get my hair cut as well.
Thanks for all that.
No, it's all right.
Matt, if you do buy some hair dye, I will share that bottle with you. I'm
not dyeing my hair. I mean, look at all of us. We're all going grey to some degree. No, I'm not dyeing my hair.
Going? I've gone. I've only got 17 hairs left.
Being very generous. No, I'm definitely not dyeing my hair. I'll grow old gracefully anyway. Last topic, a yes or no. Is it? I listened to a podcast today and they said it was wrong to have signed football shirts in your house, and I've got one. Don't rob me, anyone. Yes or no, Temps? Would you have a signed football shirt in your house? Would your missus let you have a signed football shirt in your house?
No. So my office is a bit of a shrine to sports, but no, I don't have anything signed on the walls at home.
This is a good question for a guy who's played for England and won a European Cup. Have you got any memorabilia around your house, Gary?
Nope, none at all.
See, if I was Gary, I would have. I don't think I could resist the fact that I've signed shirts, played for my country, played for Forest, Man U.
I haven't even got one of my England shirts left. I don't know where they are.
What?
I don't know where I don't know what happened to them. I had a Calzio shirt from the European Championships in Italy. I had a Migueli shirt from Barcelona. And I had an Argentinian shirt from my debut, and they've disappeared off the face of the earth as well. I don't know where they are. They're in a bin liner somewhere.
Steve Hodge hasn't got them, has he, with Maradona's shirt?
No, I spoke to him the other day. So he's still happily got that, but safely locked away.
Good. Right, we need to end this. We're waffling on. We need to get back to work. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll be back possibly after the Luton game, possibly after the Albion game. I haven't drawn up any plans. I'm very disorganised as ever. But thanks for everyone who watched or listened along. Temps, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Matt. Speak to you soon. Cheers, Gary.
And thanks very much, Gary. We'll see everyone soon.